Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Jake. You can also call me Atrocious, and today we've got the top 8 match of the Hyogo championships in OP08 in Japan. And after an exciting top 16, we move into the top 8. Remember, Red Purple Law came in as the most dominant deck in the top 16, most populous deck in the top 16, with 10 of the 16 spots whittled all the way down to 3 decks left. 3 decks remain of the Red Purple Law, tied with Lucci. All 3 of the decks that came into the top 16 advanced into the top 8, and 2 of the 3 Enels from the top 16 moved into the top 8 as well. So really good sign, especially if you are someone that is kind of cheering for something not Red Purple Law. I know a lot of people really want to see some innovations, really want to see how decks have started to strategize and change their list to counter the Red Purple Law. And so it looks like we're seeing that in full stride with these matches. Now, with this top 8 match, we're going to be watching, as you could probably tell in the title and thumbnail, we're going to be watching Lucci and Enel. It's going to be an exciting match. We've seen Enel before in the top 16 tournaments of OP08, but this could be a new innovation, a new way to play. We'll just have to wait and see. A good reminder as well that this is not my content that we're going to be watching. This is the official live stream, of the tournament. So I highly recommend, before we get into this hand of this Enel player, if you don't want to hear me yap, feel free to go to the link in the description below where you can see the official tournament. Just one more thing I promise before we get into the game, some last second additions. We are going to be helping broadcast and commentate the Las Vegas store regionals that are happening just this weekend here in a couple days. If you did not see on the community tab of our YouTube channel, I'm going to be one of the commentators in this. I'm going to be part of the production of the stream. We're going to be hosting it on the People's Card Shop official Twitch channel. So if you want to see myself and the other casters on Twitch, twitch.tv/the People's Card Shop, you can go to the link in the description below, and then afterwards it will be available on the YouTube channel. I will upload the entire thing on the YouTube channel, cutting out like the fluff between rounds and stuff like that, and just having really the games so that you can watch. But anyways, that's enough of the self promo. Let's get into it. This Enel deck right here has a Frankie in hand, one of the new 2Ks that you'll love to see. A couple different big-bodied characters. The Ace that's in OP07, that Rush 10-cost Ace. The 9-cost Yamato, something that we've seen in a ton of these yellow decks. And then Enel, the 7-drop Rush Enel. Could be an interesting version with the I Am God cards. We could see that as something that comes onto the field, but for now, we'll just have to wait and see. The Lucci, a little bit of curled cards, I will say, in here. Got 2 Lucci 4-drops, 1 Who's Who, a Brook, and then also a Tempest Kick. We've seen how impactful Brook is, as well as a card like Tempest Kick, so we'll see where they want to go in this. Not a lot of counter at all in this starting hand, so we're going to have to see where this goes on here, especially with the Enel going first. The Enel is going to be taking the odd curve at this point. And so we move into the match, the top 8 match. It's going to be a Dawn and Pass, nothing to do with the 1 Dawn. And after the top deck of the Who's Who, just going to be a pass as well. No stage to play down on your 2 Dawn turn. Drawing an Onami there for the 3 Dawn turn, going to be really nice. Might be something where they just swing 8. I don't hate this play. Just try to get a life right here right away and passing it off. Finding a Spandam. So Spandam could be nice here on your 4 Dawn turn. Building up the trash. No characters to play, so the Lucci can't pop anything. But going to be using that leader effect. The Ennis Lobby, the top card there, as the Enel takes a life. A trigger potentially, but no trigger that can be activated right now in that Frankie. And so after playing that Spandam, going to be grabbing a Lucci. I believe the only thing that they could grab there is seeing a Jack and a Spandam. Can't be grabbing itself. So just going to take that option. The Enel now going on to 5 Dawn did find, I believe, a Nami, one of the new cards in OP08, with that on play of trashing a trigger and KOing a character of 5 or less and then drawing a card if you have 3 less in hand. Might not be something that they play at this point. Maybe they do play just to get rid of the Spandam. So what they're going to do after that 5k swing is counted, they're going to play the Luffy instead and pass off the turn. Passing off the turn is really interesting in my opinion, because one thing that you need to do with the Luffy is you need to have 2 or less life. So you have to hope that this Luffy is not going to get KO'd, but you do have to populate the board. So after that 5k swing, taking that life, now the Luffy activate main effect will be active in their next turn. Gonna have the rest of these 6 Dawn to work with. That swing from the leader did -1 on the Luffy, putting it at a 4 cost, so we'll see if they can get any more down. Going to be playing that Helmeppo. The Helmeppo is going to -3 on that Luffy to put it to 1, and that Rob Lucci is going to KO it. I don't hate this play for the Rob Lucci because that Luffy is a threat on the field now that they're at 2 life or less. So I think prioritizing getting rid of that character is going to be really strong in the long run. So we'll see where they decide to go from there. Now passing it off in the 7 Dawn turn now, you could use that Nami right there. You wouldn't be able to draw cards, but you could get rid of that Rob Lucci on the 7, or you could play that Rush Enel that you've got. And it looks like with that 7, they are going to be playing that Rush Enel, swinging away at this life, going to be taking it after countering out of the first one. It's going to be another Jack, so still not finding counter at all. This Enel is going to be tearing through the hand, especially if this Enel character stays on the field. Remember, that Enel character has the opportunity when you try to get rid of it, right? If you don't have a Monkey Day Luffy on the field, you can instead take 1 of your life instead of letting the character get KO'd. So it is saying by removed on the field in any way, so even that 6 cost Brook can't get around it. But going to be moving now in 8 Dawn. Going to swing 5 first and going to be minusing the Enel, trashing a Kaku and an Ice Age at this point. So a couple cards in the trash. It's hard to tell how many cards they actually have in the trash. I believe 7 right now. Going to be attaching 1, swinging 7 at the Enel. So maybe thinking of swinging at that to try to get rid of it with the different effects. Going to be playing down that Jack. That Jack is something that we haven't really seen yet in our videos up to this point in the tournaments. Going to give itself a +4 cost, that 7 cost 8,000 power character. It does have an activate main, but it only KOs 3 costs or less. So since the Enel wasn't at a 3 cost or less, no reason to rest that for your opponent to be able to swing into it. So now on 9 Dawn now, have a couple of options with the Katakuri and also the Yamato. The Katakuri could be really interesting to get this Jack off of the field. Could be nice to try to build up threats that are on the board, take them away, but also put them back in life as they're not going to be counter cards, right? It's going to basically commit the entire turn again to be able to get rid of that Jack. So does have a Hyogo in hand. That Hyogo is something that the casters are keeping in. That'll KO any character on the field. So Hyogo could be another play that we see if they don't want to play another body, simply because the Hyogo could get rid of the Jack yet again. But we'll see at 2 life now. You're not stressing too much at this point. Could be interesting, but you definitely want to be able to keep up in the pace. So going to first be swinging 8 at the Rob Lucci, is going to be taking it down there. No counter available. Well, very few counter, just 1k, I think, maybe 3k worth of counter in general in their hand. So going to be swinging 7 right there, kind of the magic number. Going to have to commit everything in their hand in terms of counter if they want to get out of this, but they're going to be taking it and getting that Brook. No trigger right there, and resting 6, going to be that Hyogo. Gonna get rid of that Jack and go down to 1 life. Remember, when you do play Hyogo, you have to trash the top of your life card so your life total becomes 1. Something that Enel doesn't really mind too much because they like to balance at that 1 to 2 life at a couple points. So we could see that 10 cost ace come down in this next turn to replenish a little bit of life, but also get rush and be an attacking threat. Top decking a Gecko. The Gecko is nice, but again, with the no counter, only 9k worth of extra, or I'm sorry, 4k worth of extra power to your leader to make it a 9,000 total in the defense. First is going to be starting off with a swing, a nice 5k swing, -1 to the Enel character. Going to put it at 6. And so just going to be an easy counter, easy 1k counter Onami, not really something that is super beneficial in your hand if you're not really trying to swing the banish up to this point, especially against a deck that doesn't necessarily have a ton of triggers that you're really worried about at this stage of the game, because you're mostly playing these bigger bodies that can't be KO'd off of triggers. So going to be resting one Dawn, using that Tempest Kick, going to be getting the -3, I believe, on the Enel. So with 4- overall, going to be putting it at a 3 cost right now. Could be something that they play the Jack into. The Jack could be nice to get rid of it. And with the 8 cost Sabo as well, going to have multiple turns potentially of getting rid of this, but going to be playing the Gecko. The Gecko is going to find 2 different cards to put on the field, Rob Lucci, and then also a Suru. The Suru is going to -2 to get that Enel to 1, and going to choose the cycle. Remember, this Enel does get to cycle a life, but the difference is in this, by swinging at the character Enel, usually what happens with the Enel when you swing into life and they get to do this cycle is they don't necessarily lose any cards, right? They just kind of do a draw one, trash one type of deal. But swinging into this character Enel and forcing them to use the survivability proc, that's going to be able to keep one card out of their hand. It's essentially a trash 1 life and trash 1 card to replenish the 1 life. So good strategy right there of trying to not necessarily pressure the life directly, but indirectly doing so with the Enel, kind of making them have a choice and dwindling their hand down a bit. The 10 cost ace is something that we could see now that they're on 10 Dawn in general. The Yamato could also be played at this point, as well as the Katakuri, to be able to get rid of different things. We often see Katakuri getting rid of the Geckos on the field. Gecko is an annoyance at times. First off, by swinging 5 at lead, going to be a 1k counter, not really showcasing with that Spandine the little counter that they have in hand. Going to be pitching the other 2 cards on that 7k swing, a Who's Who and a Brook, not showing yet, not too much counter. And so with that ace, going to replenish a life, going up to 2. This ace now gaining rush is going to swing 10 and taking a life right here. Going to be a Spandam. So going to be interesting to see where they go. Maybe wanting a blocker at this point. No Borsalinos right now for this player, this Rob Lucci player, and has so many different characters to have to stare down right now. No Ice Ages either at this point. The Ice Age would be nice to get rid of some of these characters potentially. But first, going to be swinging 5 and trashing the 2, building up the trash. The -1, I'm not 100% sure where the -1 went. Maybe at the Enel character, but going to be thinking about how they want to counter out of this one. They are going to take this life right here. Going to be a potential trigger, not sure exactly what it is, but on this trigger, it is going to be a Rocket Luffy, and that Rocket Luffy is going to KO a character of 4 or less. So honestly, in my opinion, getting a little punish there by not swinging your character first. The Rob Lucci was one of these characters that could compete with something like the Enel character on there to put some pressure in. Now you've lost another swing, but we'll have to move on from there at this stage of the game. Several triggers in this deck allow KOs with the Onami, with the Rocket Luffy. I believe the Hyogo does as well, KOing a character equal or less than the total between you and your opponent's life card. So wouldn't have KO'd the Rob Lucci, but would have KO'd a character on the field. Thinking now with all 10 Dawns still up, we could see another Gecko played down at this point. It is going to be a Spandam, maybe looking for something like the Borsalino, but no, it's just going to be a Tempest Kick and a Ennis Lobby along with the Suru. Some 2k counter in there, sure, but no Borsalinos at this point. Nothing to get quickly off of the Gecko. If you were able to get it quickly off of the Gecko, I think you'd still be in a tough spot if they swing for game because you literally have no counter in hand. But with this 9 going to be swinging at the Enel character, I believe it is, and with 9 Dawn still at this point, you could swing with the Helmeppo or the Spandam. Would be a little tough because there are 3 2k counters in the Enel's hand, but the Enel looking to kind of decide what the best decision is. Do you want to cycle the life, right, and trash 1 card in your hand basically, or are you going to potentially take this life or KO? So it looks like it is going to be at that Enel character, so going to be pitching the Hyogo. The Hyogo not super helpful, I guess, in a lot of situations in this, because if they do play Borsalino, Hyogo does not matter, but is going to be replenishing that life. I think still thinking about what they want to trash off there, and it's going to be a Katakuri, a non-counter card. I think they're thinking about at this stage of the game, if I keep the counter, I can probably keep both of these characters on the field, and I don't think I can lose this turn. And so trying to decide what the best thing is at this point, I mean, honestly, you're in a really tough spot right now. I think the Enel has the high shot in this game. Going to be swinging 5 at lead with the Spandam, the only one. Remember that they did get to cycle, so if this attack goes through, the Spandam could be able to push for game, but we'll see if the opponent allows that to happen right here. Is going to be countering out, it looks like, with one of these 2Ks, going to be pitching a Frankie right there, and then with the rest of the Dawn swinging 7, I believe, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, so 9 it looks like at the Enel, with the 2Ks going to be getting over that. We could see them go for game on this turn, so interesting to see. We could also have, you know, a little bit of, I don't think control is the right way to say it, but we could see this 9 cost Yamato go down. I think more so than not, you probably want to go for game at this stage, so kind of mathing it out of what it's going to take. If you swing 7k with your Enel leader at first, you have all that Dawn to be able to hit with no blockers on the field. You just have to hit twice, and so with a 7k and a 10k character and no way for triggers to stop it, with 8 Dawn left after a 7k swing with the leader, you could probably just hit for game. But going to be starting out with this 10k swing, I don't hate that. You do pretty much almost guarantee a life, and so going to be just attaching the rest to the Enel, not even swinging 5 first with the leader Enel, just really reading the telegraph of the I've got no counter in hand. So great job by that Enel in that foresight of understanding, you know, there's no way he can get out of this, and a great job as well being able to get rid of those characters exactly when he needed to, right? Especially with, you know, a little bit of help from triggers, but also playing that Hyogo. That Hyogo really made the difference in the game. Getting rid of that Jack couldn't be a threat. And, you know, you have a little bit of luck with your opponent not having as much counter as they probably wanted to, but you did a good job maximizing on that and playing down the characters when they needed to. Not a long game at all, truthfully. So here's a Rob Lucci list that is probably relatively similar to the one that we saw. I don't know the exact list, but just looking at the cards, this is probably pretty close in general. You have the CP engine in here, right? You have your Rob Lucci, Khalifa, Kaku, Spandam, and Spandime, along with a couple other events in here. The Ennis Lobby, a really, really good card in general for a lot of different matchups, being able to rest and then -2 at any point in the game when there's pretty much no relevant stage removal at all at this point. You've got a couple extra characters in there like the Who's Who and the Jack to be able to do some damage. You've got the Gecko in there as well with the Rebecca to be able to grab several of the pieces of the deck that are relevant to you. Could grab something like a 2K in there, or maybe it's not on this picture. I just realized a Brook. The Brook, a good card to have in Lucci decks, in my opinion. But that's not the deck that won. Let's look at the deck that did. And again, I don't have the exact deck list that was in that match, but looking at this one, it's probably pretty similar if you're looking for a skeleton to work off of and build towards in the OP08 format in here. You have a lot of different effects in here, especially that manipulate your life. You've got your Flampes, which are really cool early game cards to be able to effectively draw to, kind of get you down to that balance area that Enel likes, and then also draw a little bit off of that in there. You've got other things like your big bodies like Ace that we saw in that one. We saw Yamatos in that game, the Enels in that game. I think Enel is a really interesting character, especially against something like black decks, right? Because of black decks, even though they don't necessarily, a lot of decks won't want to hit you and take away your life. They're going to want to get rid of your characters. So if you can, usually when especially black decks maybe use effects to get rid of the Enel, it's usually only once per turn that they have that kind of KO effect that goes on. So you can kind of cycle your life, take your life, things like that to keep that character on the field. I think that this is a very interesting card that is kind of resurging itself back into these Enel decks that we sometimes didn't really see in the OP07 format in Japan. But you're playing a lot of the other culprits of this deck in here. Your Katakuris, right, that are so expensive. The new card, Nami, coming in OP08, we didn't really see it showcased in that game, but this Egghead Straw Hat Crew 5-cost character is good for a lot of situations to be able to KO different stuff and then potentially draw on top of that. You've got your Beige in there, one of the most hated cards in format, me included, and some different options on events. We saw the Hyogo and how good the Hyogo was. You're the one that should disappear, especially when you run a lot of these non-counter cards in like Hygos, your Aces, your Yamato, Enel, Katakuri, right? Using this zero cost event is a great way to get those extra cards out of your hand and have them be of some use in terms of counter. Shirahoshi is run in a lot of different decks, and we see this card pop up from time to time, usually as a 1 or 2 of. Very good in Enel, especially because they almost always have that 2 or less life, so it gives you a little bit of flexibility on the counter as well. If you are on your 10 Dawn turn, but you want to play Yamato, right, have 1 extra Dawn, really nice, especially for some of your other odd curves like the 8 curve, right? You can have your Enel and then also the Please Save Me or Rekasar, whatever it is in the official English translation, I'm not sure. But that's going to be it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. We're going to have the store regional for Las Vegas here soon for anyone who does not know. You may have seen it in the community section or on my Twitter account. I'm going to be part of the casting crew in the Las Vegas store regional that's going on. Not too many store regionals, a lot of people think, but Las Vegas was lucky enough to get one of them, and I'm going to be a part of it. So if you want to hear more of my commentary, as well as many of my friends, right? I even have a pro card game player through Flesh and Blood who's really good at One Piece as well. He's going to be on doing some casting, as well as some other friends and locals in the community. Come check us out. Link will be in the description below. People's Card Shop over on Twitch. I'm going to try as well to have the VOD uploaded onto YouTube potentially. No promises, but I'm going to make it kind of accessible for anybody who can't make it maybe that day, just because also Twitch deletes the VODs. So I want you all to be able to see it, especially if you can't see it, because it might be a busy day for you, you know. But anyways, thank you again so much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.